So when I saw this headline on the F1Chronicle.com, I had to do a double take because it's a quote from Lauda, not Niki Lauda, as the title may be suggesting. This isn't a IT crowd moment where it's like, I thought you were dead. Sadly, unfortunately, Niki Lauda is no longer with us, but his son, Mathias Lauda, is with us, and he's been speaking about McLaren, one of his dad's former teams, of course, from back in the day, a team where he won his third and final world championship in 1984. Now, of course, McLaren are absolutely storming to the Constructors' World Championship. In the Drivers' Championship, it's very tight, though. They have that 1-2, but both Max Verstappen and George Russell are not that far behind Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. So let's have a look at what Mr. Lauda has been saying about this and whether I agree with his thoughts about McLaren's problem. I mean, it's a good problem to have, but it's still a problem. It's still something they need to deal with, the team dynamic between their two drivers. Full article on the F1Chronicle.com, as always. McLaren has no need to intervene in the intra-team championship battle between its drivers. Yet. That is the view of Mathias Lauda, the son of Formula One legend Niki Lauda. He appeared on Service TV this weekend to comment on the fascinating dynamic that is developing at McLaren at present, as Oscar Piastri's Bahrain win from pole dislodged Max Verstappen from second place in the championship. It means the young Australian is now just 3 points behind championship leader and teammate Lando Norris, whose current form and disposition is lagging slightly behind Piastri's. The Australian, in a McLaren that any opponent on the grid would love to drive this year, shows no trace of doubt, no hesitation, La Gazzetta dello Sport declared after Bahrain. In contrast, Norris's alleged mental weakness is also being debated. He, Piastri, shows an icy calm, guiding the 24-year-old through the twists and turns of this season with a self-assurance that reinforces his talent and begins to worry his teammate Lando Norris, Gazzetta added. There is no sign of real tension between Norris and Piastri yet, but former Red Bull driver Robert Dornbos thinks that Piastri's manager, former Red Bull driver Mark Webber, was furious after Suzuka. In Japan, Piastri, slightly quicker, asked McLaren if he could pass Norris to try and attack the race leader and eventual winner, Max Verstappen. The team declined. Dornbos texted Webber immediately after he suspected the Australian would be angry. He also responded immediately, Dornbos revealed to Ziggo Sport. He said, "You're right, this is not what I stand for. There is no number one driver and this has been clearly discussed." Lauda said that he thinks there is no need for team orders yet. "I think they have such a big lead with the car that they can afford that approach," said the Austrian. "They have two equal drivers. Piastri is a bit cooler, extremely calm. Nothing can upset him. Norris is much more emotional, especially when things are going badly, but their team boss is doing a good job so far at keeping the drivers under control. I think it will be exciting between the two of them until the end of the season," Lauda, 44 years of age, added. "They don't need team orders either because the car is so strong, but if Verstappen's Red Bull comes close again, they will need team orders. Right now, no." As for McLaren boss Andrea Stella, he left Bahrain openly admitting his job may become more difficult as the season rolls on. "Internally, we are not talking about whether it will happen. We are talking about when it will happen," he said, referring to the inevitability of conflict between the McLaren pair. "We are very aware that this is a difficult business." Indeed it is. It is tough at the top, in a sense. You know, you look through the history of Formula One when there is a car that is so dominant, and there is an advantage there, and there are two drivers that believe they are number one, or if they are literally number one in their contracts. You know, you go back to the past, you look at Ayrton Senna and Alan Prost at McLaren, you look at, for example, Sir Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg, Hamilton and Alonso. There's a lot of examples of drivers when there is not a clearly defined number one and number two of clashing. It is inevitable. You know, they both want to become world champion. They both have a stake to claim, effectively, when it comes to that. You know, they really, really have a lot of talent. Both of them do. And right now, the momentum is with Oscar Piastri. But we're coming to a track where McLaren had never even stood on the podium before, let alone won. And also a track that has had a tendency for drama in the championship. You know, you look at the battles between Leclerc and Verstappen in 2022. You look at the battle between Verstappen and Hamilton in 2021. This is a track where there could potentially be clashes, particularly if these two are ahead of the rest of the field and in 1-2 and battling for that lead. I agree with what Lauda's saying. You know, there is no need for team orders. The only team order I really would have given recently is what, Mark Webber and Dornbos were actually suggesting there. I would have definitely let Piastri go past in Japan to try and attack Max Verstappen. And if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. You rolled the dice, you gave it a go, you played every card that you had. You know, then you can't have any regrets because it's like, well, Max was just unbeatable on that day. And that might well have been the case. But I still maintain that they really should have let Piastri go through and try and attack. And if he couldn't get past, fine, let Lando come back through. They've done this before. You look at where they've inverted the cars before. You know, look at Hungary last year. That benefited Piastri. And I really do think that, they could have done the same thing. And then, I would have thought that Piastri would have let Norris come back through again. I think he would have done the gentlemanly thing there, because if he didn't, then that's immediately that relationship soured. And that's how quick it can happen. Lest we forget, Nico Rosberg and Sir Lewis, 2014. Before that, they were the best mates. 2013, when they were teammates at Mercedes, not fighting for the championship, best mates. Back when they were teammates in karting and the European lower formulae, best mates. They were best mates as well when they were, in Formula One in their earlier days as well, when they weren't teammates. But when those clashes happened, when Monaco happened, when Rosberg allegedly deliberately brought out the yellow flags to stop Hamilton setting a pole lap, when they clashed on track at the likes of Belgium and places like that, that is when the sparks flew. That is when those turned from friends to enemies very quickly, and it can happen. And I honestly can see the same thing happening with these two guys, Piastri and Norris. Not because they're doing anything wrong or there's anything wrong with them, just because this is something that we've seen time and time again. Doesn't matter who you are. If there is a golden carrot of the Formula One World Championship being dangled in front of you, you best believe every single one of them is going to bite, and they might well hit each other in the head when they do that. This is a very strange image, but you know what I'm trying to say here. So yeah, I don't expect it to happen anytime soon, but it could happen. This is the thing. And around a track like Saudi, it definitely could happen. Right now, though, they're doing the right thing. On the whole, keep out of it. No team orders. You can fight each other. We trust you. But if Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, if any of those dudes, if they get a performance boost, if they get up there with the McLarens, they're going to be sweating. And then at that point, you have to back one of your drivers. You got to do. When that point will happen, don't know. How long's a piece of string? How quickly can these guys develop their cars? Will they develop their cars? We've got 2026 right on the horizon. Big engine changes, big manufacturer changes on the whole. Aerodynamics, the whole car is being completely rebuilt. So who's going to go, not quite all in, but who is going to go with a decent wager on 2025? I'd wager that all four of those teams will still be developing their cars because of this, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, it's always good to talk about this stuff. As a McLaren fan, I'm always wanting to talk about Piastri and Norris, but yeah, there's big potential for this to go real ugly. Just like with any of these teammate things, it's on a knife edge. But what do you guys think? Should McLaren employ team orders? The papaya rules, should they be used for a different method? Let us know in the comments below as always. Like, share, comment, subscribe as always if you want to see more like this. And I'll probably link the video going over Norris and his apparent lack of mental strength. That was an interesting story from earlier this week. So that'll be linked to the end of this one if you're on YouTube. If you're on one of the other social platforms, go search for videos. There's plenty to choose from. We're not lacking for those. We've got literally hundreds of them. Have a great time. See you very soon. Like, share, comment, subscribe if you want to see some more. And we'll see you very soon, guys. Have a great day.